Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay. Aaron, on today's episode, we have the long-awaited Aaron Dell interview. Aaron Dell talking goalie pads, moving around, all that fun stuff, and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, Jade Young, contributor at Fear the Fin, RIP, and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch this on YouTube as well. And Aaron Dell, finally, we're able to get him booked. I know it's been a long time coming. Things happen, unfortunately. But Dell comes on. We talk about, like I said, kind of bouncing around in the COVID year, playing on a bunch of different teams, or being a part of a bunch of different teams and not actually playing, how tough that was. We talk about the Barracuda. We talk about his pad design. We talk about guitars. Before we get into that, though, do want you to know that today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And now we bring in the world's okayest goalie, Aaron Dell. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. First thing I have to ask, a little surprised to see yourself back in San Jose this offseason?
A little bit, yeah. Well, my wife's from here, so I was back for the summer, and I wasn't really expecting to be back at first, but I'll take that offer whenever it comes.
Yeah, I mean, happy wife, happy life, right? That's the motto. So, kind of after leaving San Jose, a little bit of a craziness for you, right? You signed with the Maple Leafs for the weird 2021 season, and goalies were such a hot commodity, right? Where you had with the taxi squad rules and everything like that, goalies were kind of a hot commodity. You never played a game for the Leafs. You played for the Marlies. You played for the Devils. How crazy was that year, especially playing for so many teams in such a small amount of time?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I had to go across the border with COVID and a couple of times, and yeah, it was good. We had training camp and everything with Toronto, and I was there for maybe like a week or two of the season, and then got picked up on waivers, headed down to Jersey, and it was just chaotic with all the COVID stuff and everything. And I only ended up playing, I think, 8 total games that whole year, 1 with Binghamton and 7 with New Jersey.
So how do you kind of keep yourself in game form, I guess, when you play with so few games, but having to kind of travel around and do all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you don't really get too much game realistic stuff in practice, no matter how much you try to hone it during the drills and stuff like that. So it was tough. This past year, I got to play a bunch of games in Rochester, so I got to kind of remember what that felt like and kind of get that game feel back and learn how to play games again.
All right, so you mentioned Rochester. We know the Sabres prospect pool is coming along. You can see it this year, right? This kind of an upstart team. What was it like playing with a lot of young, talented players like that for Buffalo? And now you're kind of seeing that start to pay dividends for that team.
Yeah, I mean, they got some good older leadership there, and they were a really young team the last few years, and some of those guys have really stepped into some big roles. So we had Quinn and Peterka down in Rochester for basically the whole year, and they're tearing it up with Buffalo right now, and I'm really happy for those guys. Those guys are making the steps in the right direction. They're doing great for themselves.
All right, I got to ask. Of course, you have some of the coolest pads. You've like the Devils ones I thought were amazing. You didn't really get to show those off too much. Your Sharks one this year, do you have a lot of inspiration to them? Do you just trust your guy? Kind of what's the process for when you have new pads?
I talked to my buddy Chance. He's a graphic designer. He was a goalie himself, and we're always kind of on the same page of designs that way. So he'll mock up probably 5 or 6 different ones and send them to me. I'll pick, 1 or 2 that I like, and then he'll clean them up a little bit, and then we'll kind of go from there. And then he'll do kind of a final project for whichever one I pick.
So what happens to the old ones? So I'm sure you have like the Buffalo ones and the Devils ones. Are they just kind of hanging out somewheres?
They're in my garage right now. I got to find a spot to put them and kind of display them and stuff at some point, but haven't got around to that yet.
I mean, you're kind of a busy guy right now, so I understand. Maybe like when you retire and stuff, you'll have the whole like kind of wall of fame with all the pads and everything.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So of course, you come back to San Jose. Like you kind of mentioned, you're a little surprised to get the call from Mike Grier, especially at the time you had Reimer, Kakkonen, you had Hill on the team, you had the Sharks had signed traded for Makanemi and for signed Strauss-Mann. Like going into this offseason, knowing that it was a pretty full prospect or goalie pipeline, what were your thoughts when you got that call from Grier?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what was going to happen, but I know it's one of those things. We had a bunch of young guys, and as an older like veteran player, sometimes those young guys need to get some experience and learn from guys around them and stuff like that. So I was kind of brought in for that role, and then to go up for any injuries and stuff like that. And yeah, that's kind of the point of my career that I'm in, where I'm kind of sitting at the third guy for now and coming up for injuries and helping the young guys along the way.
I mean, that was kind of my thinking too, right? They signed you, especially you have John McCarthy, first year as a head coach with the Barracuda. Just having a guy who's been around, been in the organization, especially a guy who's worked with Nabokov before. Like I said, having like you said too, having Mann and Makanemi kind of being that voice for these guys. That was kind of the role that Mike Grier envisioned for you.
Yeah, I think so, and that's kind of how it's been so far this year. And I got to go up for a little bit for a couple of games too, but those guys haven't had too many injuries or anything. I think they've taken care of it pretty well. So I've been there just in case, but kind of helping groom the young guys while I'm here.
All right, guys, before we get into some Barracuda talk with Aaron, we talk about, kind of how this team is forming and how good this team can actually be. Do want you guys know about our friends over at FanDuel. You guys know Super Bowl is here, and the only app you need for the Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because it's the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you pick on everything from money line to point spread to who will score a touchdown. Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown sounds really, really appetizing to me. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/locked-on to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the NFL. And then, of course, you got to go on the Europe trip. How much fun was that?
It was awesome. I went to Prague when I was about 13 for a tournament. So it was about 20 years since I had been there. And it was awesome to be able to experience it a little bit more as an adult and to kind of recognize some of the things that I saw when I was a kid.
And then how was the atmosphere of the games? Because it looked crazy, like just seeing, the European crowds and how they like the chants and all that stuff. How cool was that?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was kind of like a soccer fan style almost, but based around hockey. They have their own kind of I don't even know how to call it. They have like their hooligans like they have for soccer, but for hockey they kind of have their their like hooligan section that they have for the German game anyway. That it was like that for sure. And then I think the ones in Prague with Nashville weren't quite as much like that, but
Mhm.
kind of as well. But they definitely went a lot crazier when the European guys scored and stuff like that. So they're very hometown for sure. I know Hurdle got a lot of love while he was there.
I know. Is he like a rock star celebrity walking around in town?
It kind of seemed that way. Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, hometown kid, right?
Yeah.
Um, you get back. Did you have to hold your breath when going on waivers, like a little bit, just like to get sent back down to the Barracuda?
Yeah. It's always kind of scary.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes you're in a situation where you're hoping you get claimed, but when you're hoping you stay, you're crossing your fingers a little bit, going, I hope I get to stay here, and it's a little stressful for 24 hours.
Yeah, it makes sense. Especially because, like you said, your wife's from there. It sounds, it seems like you're kind of putting down your roots now. You have your young guy Jackson, who's yeah, like you don't want to pick up and move with all that stuff. It's yeah,
Yeah.
too. All right, so I wanted to kind of talk about the Barracuda, right? You have, the three-headed monster between you, McAnemy, and Man. I know Man's kind of been going between Wichita and San Jose a lot, but what's it like kind of with three capable goalies like that, kind of competing for playing time, but also, again, trying to support each other?
It's great. I mean, you get to push each other competitively and in a good way too. Like you want to see those guys do well. You want the team to do well, and it's kind of exciting that way. You have to be your best to be able to be in, and I think it's great for everybody. You get that kind of competitive environment, and it just makes everybody better.
And then you kind of mentioned it, but you're kind of the old man on the cooter now. What's it like again playing with, you have like Eklund who's 20, Bordelow's 20, when you have a bunch of these, Robbins, all these kids who have been running around. What's it like kind of being like, well, yeah, all you kids running around, I got to go home to my wife and kid and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy that when I first went up with the Sharks, I was like 27 or so,
Mm-hmm.
and I was one of the younger guys on the team. And then in 3 or 4 years, I was the oldest guy on the team. It seemed to happen so fast, but yeah, it's crazy. I mean, everybody kind of seems like they're all the same age. You kind of get that group vibe that everybody kind of seems like they're about the same.
Mm-hmm.
Then you realize you got guys that were born in 2002, and then I was 13 already at that point.
I was in high school. I was about to graduate, so I feel you. Seeing the birth dates of the, like, especially the draft eligible guys this year, and yeah, you feel real old really quickly.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to somebody the other day. I said my first year pro was 2012, 13, and they're like, "Yeah, I was 10."
Oh no, yeah, it's time goes too fast. All right, so the Barracudas, this team here, we have a lot of kind of new faces, right? With Eklund and Bordelow, Bordelow being named an All-Star, and I think Eklund's been kind of proven why he's a top, was a top 10 pick. How kind of impressed are you with some of the young talent, and how good do you think this Barracuda team can be?
I think we have all the talent in the world, and I think the issue we ran into early in the year was we kind of needed to adapt to the pro game a little bit. A lot of young guys coming from junior and stuff like that hadn't played this mean, rough, tough pro game at this level, and I think they're starting to make that adjustment now and realizing how they have to play to be successful. And some of those guys have really kind of come into their own in that, and I think it shows with especially the guys you mentioned with the Boards and Eki.
It's the Eki nickname, it's every time it gets me. I know, and then too, right? The Barracuda dealt with a lot of injuries. You're starting to, especially on the blue line, right? You're starting to get some of those guys back, like Derek Pouliot, Knizev, like some of these guys starting to come back. How much does that help, especially you, like just having the same guys in front of you every night?
It's huge. I mean, you have the communication between D partners and stuff makes a huge difference when you're breaking the puck out or just the playing style that they get used to. And it's great for those guys to have those same guys with them all the time. And it sucked having Pooley out for a while. He was a big part of that team, power play and penalty kill, defense, everything. He's got a ton of experience and a Stanley Cup, and that's a guy that we need right now, especially with all the young guys on the team.
All right, and then TXU Arena. You played with the CUDA back when they were in the SAP. In that big arena. What's it like, kind of having a home for the Barracuda now?
It's kind of nice to have its own separate spot, and it doesn't seem like you're kind of just pushed into a spot that seems temporary, and it seems like a more permanent thing, and it seems like it's our own thing, and it seems like a home versus a more temporary situation.
I know my kids love it. I've taken them to a bajillion Sharks games. But then, going to TXU, they actually rather go because they like being up close. They like, I think it's more kind of kid friendly, if that makes sense, right? Where, especially for the fans, where you're right there, you're right on top. They love whenever sitting on the corner and somebody gets hit, and they love being on the glass and just watch, kind of reacting and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, TXU it's a great arena. And I'm super excited for you guys to actually have a home now.
Yeah, it's a little more intimate that way than it was at SAP Center. It's obviously a smaller venue, and I feel like the fan experience is more part of the action that way.
And then when you're not playing and you're the backup and you're sitting on the little stool, how do you is it kind of weird that you could be a moment away from being in the game, but there's also someone 5 feet away from you eating a hot dog? How do you kind of tune everything else out and focus on the game?
I mean, there's a lot of buildings that are like that, especially in the American League. But I'm kind of used to it now at this point. I've kind of seen it all. But there's the odd NHL building that's like that too. I know in Montreal, you're across from the bench, and there's just fans right beside you and stuff. So you just kind of have to stay in the game, stay watching, and kind of keep that mentality. It's too easy to just kind of seem like you're a fan at that point, but you have to keep your mind in it.
What happened in those situations where it's you do have to come in? Are you just trying to stretch like crazy? Because you're kind of just sitting there on the on a little bench or on a stool for 20, 30 minutes at a time, and all of a sudden you have to come in, especially in game. I assume coming in between periods is a little bit easier because you can stretch and stuff between, but you're just trying to come in and stretch out as quickly as you can.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how early in the game it is and stuff like that, but you still get a good warm up, and you get kind of a little bit of a sweat going, and the gear is nice and heavy and warm, so you stay fairly warm still. For the most part. There's a couple of rinks that get pretty cold, but I personally leave my gloves on. That kind of keeps the heat in as well. That way I don't get too cold. But yeah, it's never an easy spot to get put in, but yeah, I think it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing, really.
Makes sense. All right, before we finish up with Aaron, we get to get some of his off the ice, talk about his guitars. Do want you guys know about our friends over at Built Bar. If you guys don't know by now, Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. The great thing about them, you don't want all the fat and calories. That's where you have to try Built Bar. We got through the holidays, new year, new me, but you want to eat something that tastes good. Built Bar comes in with 100% real chocolate on every bar. They have great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and they're only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And the great thing now is if you're impatient, you don't want to wait for them to come in the mail, you can head over to Walmart or Sam's Club. At Walmart, you can go to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of the Built Bars. They have 4 boxes like cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs, or go to Sam's Club, grab a 13-bar box with flavors like brownie batter and churro, or check out built.com where they have a whole selection of new flavors waiting to be tried. So make sure you guys check out built.com today. All right, kind of some couple off the ice questions here. So pre-game rituals, are you a superstitious guy, little stitious guy, or are you a let it flow guy?
I'm probably between a little stitious and let it flow.
Okay.
I like to do everything kind of more of a routine not necessarily than a superstition.
Mhm.
I just kind of like to keep things as similar as possible, but I'm not gonna freak out if it's different.
Are you a like quiet guy to yourself in the locker room, or you kind of chatty with people? You never know with goalies. It's kind of like pitchers, right? Where you like some of them get their they don't want to talk to anybody, or you kind of like just hanging out with the guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same all the time. I
Mhm.
joke around and stuff like that. Keep it pretty loose. If you get too serious about it, I tend to overthink things. And if I'm just there, happy, having fun, I think that's when I'm my best personally.
Makes sense. All right, I'm gonna ask you to rank the CUDA jerseys. So brand new jerseys. You have the ice one, the steel gray one, and the black one. Why don't you rank them for me?
Uh, I'm gonna say the gray one's number one, then I'll go the whites and then the blacks.
Those gray ones, yeah. When I first saw them, I was really impressed with that, and they look so great on the ice too.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I know. Was it weird, especially because like they used to have the orange ones? I mean, I personally like the orange ones, but I mean, I know, I guess some players didn't like the orange ones, or where were you on the old Barracuda orange?
They were a lot, but I I didn't hate them. I had a lot of orange in my pads when I was there before, so I didn't mind them.
And then, I mean, how does it sometimes I know like especially with you have your pads are kind of designed for the jerseys, but like especially in the AHL, right, you have a lot of weird nights. I know like the Bear could have like the churro night, and like Christmas. Does it feel a little like kind of mismatchy, like when you're wearing like your gear and then you have like these crazy jerseys you got to wear for the night?
Yeah, it kind of is sometimes, but it hasn't been too bad. I know I was wearing blue and yellow with red and blue in Rochester last year, so that was about as bad as I've seen it.
I know I talked to Ben Gaudreau recently, the Sharks prospect, and he was like, he had his Canada like red pads, he had his like Sarnia yellow helmet, and like the teal, jerseys a couple of
Yeah,
camps ago, and he said it was you almost feel like in video games, like when you're first starting to collect the gear and you got all the weird mismatched gear. That's how
yeah,
he felt he was. So,
yeah.
all right, a couple more here. Socks and skates. You have to wear socks and skates, or are you a monster who wears no socks?
Absolutely not. I socks all the time.
All right, and then I wanted to ask you about your guitar collection. If anybody's followed you on especially on Instagram for a while, we know you have a pretty sweet guitar collection. What got you into playing guitars? Like, where did that kind of start?
My dad was in a band when I was really young, so he had some. I started playing a little bit. He taught me when I was pretty young. He got me my first one when I was about 11 or so,
Mhm.
and then it kind of was all history from there. I was hooked, and throughout high school and stuff, I played probably a couple hours every day and stuff like that. And then once I could afford it with my own money, I bought the ones I wanted, and yeah, I kind of have a solid collection now. I think I have about 14 total
Wow.
now. Oh,
Ugh.
it over the years.
I'm sure it's not fun when, especially moving cross country, having to like worry about those getting moved. I know you have nice cases. I assume you have nice cases for them and everything, but just to like you get them and you open them up, make sure everything's good for when you moved.
Yeah, I did actually have one that got broken
Oh,
pretty recently, but not sure if I'll be able to fix it yet. Haven't got to that point, but I'll have to take it in and see if I can get it fixed or and whatnot. But yeah, that hurt a little bit.
I'm sure. As someone who's moved cross country multiple times, I understand that. Like, yeah, you're just hoping the majority of your stuff gets say makes it through the move. So, Aaron, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. So, looking really glad that you spent some time with us and chatting. So, thank you so much. If you have anything you want to say, anybody you want to shout out, whatever, you have all the time in the world, buddy.
All right, thank you.
All right, appreciate it. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Aaron Dell, the world's okayest goalie. I assume James Reimer will be traded, and we'll probably see Aaron up on these Sharks to end this season. So wanted to try to get this in here before he is no longer available to me when he's on the Sharks. But fun chat with him, especially being kind of the old man on the Barracuda, with a bunch of kids. But, it's interesting to see these guys who've kind of bounced around in their story and how they kind of gotten to where they're at. So I hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Aaron. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at myfryhole. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can listen wherever you get podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple, and of course, watch on YouTube as well. Until tomorrow, bye, friends.